Dear Vietnamese Jesus, I pray that all the videos I have published since 2008 have not resulted in any accidents, fatalities, or the innocent of killing of Pakistanis in a Toyota Sienna on their way to Disneyland. Thank you, Vietnamese Jesus. Amen. All right, let's get started, guys. Oh, and before we even start, I just wanted to thank a person by the name of ACRAD on clublexus.com for actually recommending that I make this video on break, bleed, and flush. Otherwise, I'd be sitting at home writing up some other video on how to flush your digestive system until it bleeds. So let's thank ACRAD for this video. All right, ACRAD. So let's start by saying that you guys are gonna see a bunch of videos on YouTube right now on how to pressure flush and pressure bleed your Lexus GX460 and amongst hundreds of other cars on how to generally bleed your brake system. And they're going to showcase certain canisters, they're going to showcase the one-man method, they're going to showcase the two-man method, they're going to showcase the orgy and the gangbang train. But I am here to actually showcase a canister that ACRAD recommended. But I'm going to go ahead and take it a step further and actually buy a different canister than what ACRAD purchased, just to show you side by side, because I do believe in value. I do believe in getting your money's worth. So I bought one big name brand called SMotive, M-O-T-I-V-E. I also bought an off-brand one called SMotive, and I'm going to compare them. They work exactly the same. But like what these videos does for you folks at home is it showcases the pros and cons and let you decide for yourself which one you would rather have or spend your money on. So top name brand SMotive has a pump assembly where you pump up and down on this handle to build up pressure inside the canister. The off-brand one also has a pump assembly right on the top. Both, as you can see, have gauges, and both have 4.5-star reviews or higher on Amazon. I made sure of that to make sure it is a very fair comparison. So now let's go ahead and talk about the differences. With the SMotive brand, in order to let air out, you're going to have to unscrew the pump assembly, meaning you're going to have to break the seal. With the off-brand one, they have a pressure relief valve right here. Let me go ahead and unwind this for you guys. They have a pressure release valve right here, so you never have to compromise the seal of the pump assembly. With SMotive, you have to open up the pump assembly again in order to fill your brake fluid into the canister. With the off-brand one, you keep the pump assembly sealed, and it has a separate fill cap for you right here for you to fill up your brake fluid. But you know, with everything that requires a tight seal, you're going to have to use your strength. And sometimes you don't know your own strength and you tighten it too much, and then when you try to remove it, you're actually going to have to use your strength. With the off-brand one, to open up the fill cap, they give you a special wrench right here in order for you to break it loose. And they use it to tighten also. With SMotive, this is the only thing that comes in the box. With the off-brand one, it actually provides you the bleed bottle and the chain to hang it onto your suspension system. So with that being said, guys, girls and Bruce Jenners out there, I will let you guys decide on which one you guys would prefer. Because one thing's for sure that both of them do have in common is they do not have an adapter for Lexus and Toyota that comes into their kit. You cannot purchase it with the canisters. So the good thing with the off-brand is the off-brand comes with a quick release coupler. So when you do buy your Lexus and Toyota adapter for your master cylinder, you can easily just attach it on there and you're ready to go. With Motive, they do not have a quick coupler. It has a female threaded connector right here. I'm not exactly sure on what type of adapter this uses, but most likely if we're going to use this on our GX460, we're going to have to cut off this tube, go to the hardware store and pick a fitting that's going to fit onto our adapter, most likely buy another quick release that already comes with the off-brand one. Okay, so keep that in mind when you do make your purchases. Okay, and remember, you're going to have to pick up this 43 millimeter Toyota Lexus adapter for your master cylinder. I'm going to send you guys a link below the video in the description, so you guys could buy this if you guys want. This is also made by SMotive. Another thing we're going to need a turkey baster. I am going to be using a Marinade Injector, which works perfectly fine. Okay, you guys can go into your kitchen and steal your wife's turkey baster if you want, if you don't want to spend any money. Just make sure you clean it very well so you don't contaminate your brake fluid when you do the job. You're going to need plenty of rags for the engine compartment, just in the event that you're going to make a huge mess. You're going to need an 8 millimeter pipe wrench or closed-ended wrench. So finally, we are going to need brake fluid. Lexus is going to tell you to use .3. I'm telling you right now, if you're going to go use .3, you might as well go pick it up on your way to pick up your guys and go towards your shopping mall appointment for your manicures, because I am not going to use .3. Never will, never have. I typically use .4 for my Lexus GX460 because my brakes run a lot hotter than the average Joe, because I do take my GX460 out to the Irwindale Speedway to go drifting against Skyline GTRs, so my brakes do naturally run hotter than you folks that actually do use .3 to go get your manicures done. So with that being said, are all .4s created equal? No, they aren't. There are non-synthetic .4s and there are synthetic .4s. Synthetic .4s, you can use your brake fluid all the way up to 50,000 miles. With non-synthetic, it's 15,000 miles or every 2 years. So in reality, I'm using .4 not because I'm racing against Lamborghinis and Ferraris on the weekends. It's because I'm actually a lazy ass and I don't want to frequently change my brake fluid. And also, if you're going to use .4, guys, make sure you pick up a reputable name brand. I like to use Valvoline synthetic .4. If you guys are going to go pick up like Walmart brand .4 made by SuperTech, I'm just warning you guys ahead of time. The accumulation of SuperTech products in your garage is enough for all your guy buddies to talk shit behind your back. So stop buying Walmart crap, okay? Embarrassing, man. You are also going to need WD-40, and because if you guys have been driving around in the countryside or through rivers and lakes and stuff like that and submerging your vehicle in water, especially your suspension, you're going to have some rusty parts underneath there. There's going to be a bleed nipple at each caliper and we're going to have to break them open. So if you guys have been going to the shopping mall and back, you shouldn't have a problem. But if you guys have been going out to the countryside a lot where there's a lot of moisture and you guys live in states that have heavy rainfall, you might want to pick up a can of WD-40, soak up your bleed nipples a little bit, that 8 millimeter nut on there, let it soak for 15 minutes and then come back to your job and break them open, okay? And you are going to also need brake parts cleaner. I picked up a can of brake parts cleaner right here by SuperTech. I picked this up at Walmart. Great name brand for brake parts cleaner. I normally, right before I even do anything on the brake systems, especially near the brake nipple area, I spray a can of brake parts cleaner to make sure all the contaminants and all the debris are out of the way. I wipe it all clean, I wipe it down dry before I even open up those nipples. So with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and bring all of our tools and parts to the vehicle. Let's open up the hood. I'm going to show you guys exactly where the brake master and cylinder is, if you guys haven't already known. But I'm going to test out these canisters for leakage first. The last thing I want to do is to fill up these canisters with brake fluid and find out that I got a seal leak somewhere, and I'm going to have to empty it out and I'm going to have to return it, and then the supplier is going to be like, hell, you used it already. I'm like, I didn't use it. It was leaking. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and attach this and this to our master cylinder, and we're going to pump this sucker up and see if it holds any pressure. And from there, we can move on to the next step. So let's go ahead and go to the vehicle. I'm going to have to remove all of these caps here. There should be 4 tabs. There should be 4 tabs for you to remove. Once you remove these 4 tabs, you're going to remove the cover, set it aside. And here is our brake reservoir. We're going to clean it up in order to get high visibility, so at least we see where the line is for the max and the minimum and where our brake fluid sits. And grab some soap and water and spray it really good. Make sure you clean it. Gonna go ahead and open up the cap. I'm going to take an empty bowl or some kind of empty container, set it aside right here. I'm going to grab our turkey baster or injector or whatever type of syringe you're going to use and try to suck out as much old brake fluid as much as possible. I'm going to go ahead and try it with the large opening first. Now I'm going to take my brake fluid and I'm going to fill it all the way to the top. I'm going to go ahead and get my Toyota Lexus adapter right here. It comes with a lock pin. You're going to remove the lock pin by just sliding the pin out. You're going to take the clamp off. You're going to take this seal right here and you're going to insert it with this insert pointing outward. I'm going to go ahead and take the clamp, place it back over, and I'm going to put the pin back in order to keep this in place. There you go. So what I went ahead and did was I already cut off the tubing and this coupler off of the SMotive canister, and I attached it directly to the Lexus Toyota nipple right here, and I zip tied it to get a good seal. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pump your canister until you reach about maybe, how about there? You let it sit for a few minutes to see if it's going to leak some air. So if the gauge holds steady, that means you got a pretty good seal. So we can go ahead and release the air pressure out of this SMotive canister and go ahead and fill it up with brake fluid. Cool. Set this aside somewhere clean where it's not going to collect debris and dust on here, and we're going to fill this up with brake fluid. Because I want to flush out my system with all brand new brake fluid, so I'm going to be bleeding my brakes, let it run through the lines a lot longer than just your typical wait until you see air bubbles and then close up the line. I'm going to see some air bubbles, and then I'm going to see no air bubbles, and I'm still going to let it run for a little bit just so it could clear out the lines with brand new brake fluid. And that's why I'm doing a flush. I'm going to go ahead and pump it to 15 psi. You want to do 10 to 15. I like my fluid to run a lot more than just at a flow of 10 psi. I'm gonna do 15. Let it settle there for a little bit. After I pumped it up to 15 psi, I'm gonna let it sit for another minute just to do a second round of leak checks, because I don't want to be breaking up my lines and find out that I broke another seal somewhere, and that's just gonna be another headache. Let it sit for a minute, make sure that the gauge sticks at 15. So if you notice, my gauge is about at 14 psi, and that's okay. You just want it to be between 10 and 15 psi. So you guys have heard pretty much all over the internet the sequence of which wheel to bleed first. And generally there's a rule of thumb that pretty much everybody knows about. It's the furthest one from the master cylinder, which is going to be your passenger rear. And then the second farthest is going to be your driver's side rear. And then we're going to go up to your passenger front and then your driver front as the last bleeder. But that is not always the case, guys, because if we're going to do our Lexus GX460, we are going to be doing it just like everybody else does. But then if you own a Honda, or if you were unfortunate to be in poverty and own a Nissan, their ABS module is not in front of the driver like Lexus GX460 owners have, because their brake master cylinder is on the driver's side, but their ABS module is on the passenger side. So their bleeding sequence is pretty much reversed when it comes to the rear. Okay, so don't always depend on where the master cylinder is. You're going to have to follow the brake lines to the ABS module. Luckily for me and you, the ABS control module is attached to our master cylinder. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the passenger rear, and we're going to clean up the area first before we take off the rubber nipple. Okay, luckily for us, our bleed nipple is right here. It's right in the center of our brake caliper. If you look all the way back here, okay, before you even take off this rubber, we're going to spray it really good with brake cleaner. I want to clean the surrounding areas really good. We're going to go ahead and remove the rubber nipple, okay? We're going to take our 10mm wrench, we're going to place it over here. We're going to go ahead and take our bleed bottle. We're going to take the chain that comes with it and the hook that comes with it. We're going to hook it onto this hole right here. We're going to let it hang, and we're going to take the other end right here, this rubber piece right here, and we are going to attach it to our bleed nipple. Now we are going to go back to the master cylinder to make sure that it is still holding pressure at 15 psi. Now we can go ahead and crack open this bleed nipple with our 10mm and watch all the air bubbles flow through this line. We're going to keep going until we see no more air bubbles, and then we can close up this line and tighten it. I'm gonna go ahead and go a little further than that. After I see all the air bubbles go out, I'm gonna let it run for a little bit more because I want to flush out my lines. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. There you go. Look at all those bubbles. You see the bubbles? And go ahead and tighten my lines. Do not over tighten. You want it snug, and that's about it. There you go. Now I can go ahead and disconnect my lines here. Remove my wrench. I'm going to put my little nipple cover back on here. Plug it back in. And that should be it. So now we are at the driver's side rear, and before I even hooked everything up, I went to check the PSI on the canister bottle and make sure it's around 15 PSI and it is still holding the pressure. So that's a good sign. Okay, so We also want to make sure that the master cylinder is not dropping way above a dangerous level where we're going to introduce air into the system. We're going to make sure it's at least at the halfway midpoint of that master cylinder brake reservoir. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and break this open too, lefty-loosey. There you go. Lots of air. Look at that, guys. See all that air? Even after the air stopped, I'm going to let it run for a little bit more because we are flushing out the lines. So I'm not only just bleeding the brakes, I'm flushing my brakes. That should be good. I'm going to go ahead and tighten it. Remember, do not over tighten. There we go. Woo! Okay folks, now we are at our front passenger wheel, and naturally your canister is going to start losing PSI after each and every single bleeder you do. Okay, so it's always a good idea to go back to your canister and pump it up to PSI again. There you go, no more air bubbles. Let it run a little bit more, trying to flush out the brake system so we have brand new brake fluid. So I'm going to continue to let it run. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and remove this. Make sure you wipe everything down of any excess brake fluid. You don't want it to get on any of your rubber lines or plastic lines, or especially your paint. It'll do wonder for your paint job. Go back. Make sure you got 15 PSI. So folks, sometimes if your nut is a little stuck and WD-40 is not working, and your open-end wrench is feeling like it's going to strip the nut, you might want to take a deep socket to it and break it open. This worked for me. After you loosen it, go ahead and tighten it back up so no fluid falls out. Now you're going to put the nipple back on here. Now let's go ahead and crack this open. Woo! Look at that fluid flow. Look at it flow. No bubbles whatsoever. See how clear it is? Look at that. So let's go ahead and tighten this baby up here. Snug it in. And I'm going to do the rest with my deep socket, just so I don't strip my nut. Hand tighten, and we're good. Go ahead and put the nipple back on here. There we go, let's call it a day. So now that we're all done, we're going to go ahead and relieve the pressure off of this SMotive canister. Let the pressure go back down. See how it's sucking back into the canister. Okay, and now I am going to open up the Toyota Lexus adapter for our master brake cylinder, take out the lock pin and open up the clamshell. We're going to take this and make sure you have a rag ready to go right here next to you. And we are going to remove all excess brake fluid, put it back into our .4 brake fluid bottle, and then fill up the rest with water, and then go back to Walmart with our receipt and get a return. We want to take out all this brake fluid until our brake fluid goes back down to the max line, between the max and the minimum line. Think we should be good. Go ahead and close shop. So what do you guys think? Did any of you guys think that was going to be rocket science? It's pretty fairly easy, right? As long as you have things that help you along instead of doing it the old way of doing things, where everything was just done by hand and done by gravity. And the gravity method, trust me, takes forever. The Harbor Freight method does the slow drip method. If I wanted a slow drip, I would have went to Starbucks and got an espresso or something. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and test drive our vehicle. We're going to pump on the brakes a little bit, go test drive our vehicle, make sure nothing feels weird, nothing feels spongy. If your brakes are feeling spongy, you still got some air left inside your lines, okay? So make sure you get a pretty good feel on your brake pedals. I can't explain what a good feel for your brake pedal is, but you just know by common sense that it should be right. Okay, so let's go ahead and go around to every single wheel and torque them. 89 foot-pounds, 90 foot-pounds, and you're good to go.